Quick PSA, a ton of info was cut from the script to get the commentary to fit into the length of the run. If you'd like to read the script along with the video, there's a link to the full script in the description with all cut lines highlighted in red. Hey guys, my name's Tomato Anus, also known as Dongus Minimus, and this is a no out-of-bounds speedrun of The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. This run is actually performed by Sandy X, the current no out-of-bounds world record holder for Oblivion. He also worked with me on writing the commentary for this run, making sure that everything is correct and as accurate as possible. This run isn't any percent, and the game can actually be beaten even faster by performing out-of-bounds clips, hence the name of this category. The world record for any percent is held by Garish Goblin, which is linked in the description below. Also in the description are links to a commentary-free version of this run, as well as Sandy's no out-of-bounds world record. This run is performed on version 1.0, which is a downpatched version of the game. This run is also performed with the frame rate limited to 60 frames per second. This is due to the physics of the game behaving unreliably at higher frame rates and to make sure that everyone has an equal footing when performing runs. We're going to play as a female high elf this run because that's the tallest race with a height of 1.1 units. Character speed is tied to their height, so by playing as a high elf, we'll move faster with no extra effort. To start the run, Sandy loads a pre-made save that is made as we gain control after character creation and before the pop-up for the tutorial quest appears. Once Sandy dismisses the pop-up, the run officially begins. Right away, Sandy holds S to walk backwards and hit a trigger to make Val and Dreth start talking to us from across the hallway, as well as equipping both Heal Minor Wounds and Flare to some hotkeys. After we get Dreth talking, we have about 65 seconds to kill before he finishes. In the meantime, Sandy will move some bones to clear his path for later on, as well as try to intimidate Dreth into talking faster by throwing a ribcage at his cell door, as well as a respawning tan jug. The reason why the jug respawns is because it goes out of bounds, and the game places it back in bounds. Good thing the no out of bounds rule for the category only applies to us. To top it all off, Sandy will also demonstrate to us how he's into BDSM by playing with some of the dangling chains on the wall. Sandy also has it set up so that when he scrolls his mouse wheel, it can register as a left click, which will be used throughout the run to spam through dialogues as well as spam certain actions. Sandy's pre-made high elf also just so happens to look like they're from an Eiffel 65 music video. We then wait for an audio cue from Captain Renault. If we pickpocket Glenroy between when Renault says the words supposed and off, it will open the door immediately rather than have to wait a little longer. By then hitting Glenroy with a punch or fireball when Renault finishes her next line, Uriel Septim, aka Patrick Stewart, aka King Goobot V from Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, will run up to us immediately to speak. After we use the scroll wheel clicker to get through the dialogue, a hidden passage opens. We punch Glenroy 3 times, followed by heaving a fireball to aggro the blades as we're running away. This causes the blades to run and chase after us, rather than slowly mosey through the passageways. We then hold block and press E on Renault to yield to the blades, followed by immediately turning and fighting a group of assassins from the Mythic Dawn who just spawned. Sandy makes quick work of them by lobbing some fireballs and immediately goes to speak with Boris. After we speak with Boris, we punch Glenroy 3 times, followed by punching Goobot 5 times to put them just on the edge of being aggroed, so we only have to punch them once or twice later on. We then head over to a nearby wall, as Sandy wishes that he were just a little thinner and could squeeze through a small hole. After a rat shows us his Kool-Aid Man cosplay by breaking down the wall, we run through the next room and take all the items from the Goblin Shaman's inventory and enter the Imperial substructure. Throughout the game, Sandy is going to try and preemptively kill some enemies before they have a chance to possibly get in his way, like with a rat at this corner. Not all of these enemies hinder his movement every run, but it's a safety precaution against losing time, so pour one out for all the enemies that are killed despite the fact they might not have actually gotten in Sandy's way. Something that's interesting to note is that right now Sandy is playing in a 16:9 aspect ratio, which might not seem out of the ordinary. However, if you look at his world record run, he normally speedruns this game in a 4:3 aspect ratio. This is because when he plays in 4:3, the screen is smaller so his mouse has less overall distance to travel when he's menuing. As of the day this video released, Sandy holds a 1-second lead over Miroku in second place, so top level play is incredibly competitive and every second matters. When Sandy enters the natural caverns, he's going to unnecessarily kill 2 goblins with fireballs, but that shouldn't come as a surprise after we learned earlier he was into sadism with the chains. However, the 3rd goblin that he kills actually matters since it has a bow and arrow. If Sandy didn't kill this goblin, it could shoot him, which might add an arrow to his inventory, which is actually a bad thing because it would throw off his muscle memory later on when performing arrow duping. The bow and arrow goblin can also spawn with a mace in its hands, in which case we don't have to kill it. When we enter the Imperial subterrane, we'll be reunited with Goobot and his posse. We'll then punch Glenroy twice to aggro him and lure him next to a door where we yield to him, making him open the door faster. In the meantime, we take out a sneaky boy up on a ledge and then turn to kill the assassin behind the door Glenroy just opened. We then punch Glenroy as he reaches the next door to manipulate the locations of some upcoming NPCs. By punching him as he reaches the door, it causes for the 3 enemies in the next room to come to the door you're at, while the 3 enemies in the room after that will stay in their respective room rather than come into the next room. We then speak with Goobot and pick the steed as our birth sign for the 20 bonus speed, after which we launch a fireball to aggro Goobot and begin our retreat. Running away from Charles Xavier, we loot 10 iron arrows and 4 lockpicks from a chest that we run over. As Goobot hauls ass, we take out the assassins in the next room who are all frozen in place due to the NPC manipulation from earlier. As the party approaches, we yield to Glenroy as he reaches a specific spot in the room, which causes Boris to talk to us immediately. We then enter the sanctum and do our best to push Glenroy as far as we can, despite him smearing butter all over his armor earlier today. We're then going to perform a long series of item duplications. The first one we perform is an arrow dupe, which is the reason why we play on version 1.0. If you pull out your fists or any weapon and pull up the menu with F2 followed by clicking on our arrow stack twice, then drop an item, it will drop however many arrows we have of that item we dropped. We perform this trick to dupe our potions and the chameleon scroll that we picked up off of the goblin shaman. We then picked up the potions that were dropped and 9 of the 10 scrolls. We then did an item dupe again, but this time by clicking on chameleon and dropping flashbolt. This is called a scroll dupe, but we'll explain this later because there isn't enough time to right now. Just a warning though, the explanation won't be for another 17 minutes. After doing some work to get the party into Goobot's death room, we bind our flashbolt scrolls and dupe an exorbitant amount of lockpicks, making the floor look like a girl just spent the night in this room. Sandy then hit the boys, followed by killing Glenroy, which can aggro Boris and make him run to us faster after Goobot meets his fate. This is quickly followed by Goobot handing over the Amulet of Kings, before being killed while making a face that looks like he smelled an awful fart but doesn't want to say anything. Sandy then makes quick work of the assassin and yields to Boris so he'll speak to us. After skipping through the dialogue, we get to pick our class where we go with Scout due to the fact that it focuses on speed, athletics, and acrobatics. Once we're done talking to Boris, we head to the sewers using Boris's key to open the door. We have now officially completed the tutorial and were tasked by Goobot to find a man named Joffrey and to give him the Amulet of Kings, for Joffrey will know how to find Goobot's last surviving son. On our way through the sewers, Sandy slips past some enemies before reaching the exit, where we immediately pull up our map with F4 and fast travel to Bruville to get some skooma. To get to the vendor, we can actually fast travel to Chestnut Handy Stables, which is faster in real time, but because PC speedruns are timed within game time, we fast travel to Bruville proper since it's faster in game time. In Bruville, we start walking and then pull up the wait menu and wait for 24 hours. We're actually just setting up the slider to be at 24 for any time we wait in the run, as we're only going to wait until 2 AM, at which point we stop waiting and walk into an alleyway to speak with Nordenor. When shopping with Nordenor, we sell all of the potions that we duped earlier to buy 1 skooma. If you're unfamiliar with skooma, it fortifies both speed and strength by 60 points for 20 seconds, while lowering agility by 60 points for 20 seconds, and damaging our intelligence by 2. After buying the skooma, we pull up our map and fast travel to Wayne Priory. As soon as we load in, we press F2 to pull up our inventory and drop the skooma, followed by picking it back up. We're about to dupe the skooma a ton, and for some reason the game won't let us dupe it without dropping it once first. We then perform some scroll dupes on the skooma to get around 400 skooma to last us the rest of the run. At this point, Sandy binds the skooma, drinks 4 of them, and makes a save in front of the door to the Wayne house. This save is for load warping, which is a glitch that will be coming up relatively soon, but we'll go over what it is when we get there. In the house, we run upstairs to talk to Joffrey and give him the amulet. We then make our break for the exit, trying to avoid getting talked to by Brother Piner on the way, which Sandy does successfully, while also being careful to not land on top of the doorway. Outside, we then fast travel to Kvatch, and as soon as we load in, we pop 4 skooma, bring up our inventory, and drink 4 more. This puts us under the stacked effects of 8 skooma, giving us 500 additional speed and a carry weight of 2,550. The normal limit for popping skooma with a hotkey before the game yells at you to stop drinking is 5 stacks. However, if you only take 4 skooma via hotkey and then open your inventory and drink 4 more, then it will circumvent the original limit of 5 stacks and give you the effects of 8 skooma stacks. This is used all throughout the run, especially when running long distances. While I was busy explaining skooma stacks, Sandy entered the first Oblivion gate of the game and performed a trick called gate jump to jump across the 2 big gates on the bridge, followed by entering the tower portal to the Blood Feast, and then run up the tower all the way to an exit back to the plane of Oblivion exterior. This is where we perform the first skooma jump of the run. By precisely running at a raised ledge of the bridge and jumping at the same time, we'll jump high enough and with enough speed to be able to reach the door on the second bridge going into the primary tower. Back inside, we make our way up to the locked door that leads to Sigillum Sanguis, where we use the scroll wheel clicker to spam auto attempt on the lockpick. On the other side of the door, we make another save in preparation for load warping later, and then perform a skooma jump off of some spikes to fly up to the sigil stone, which we promptly yoink. With the stone in our pocket, we drop down to the bottom floor of the room, which skips part of the cutscene of the area being destroyed and automatically teleports us outside the Oblivion gate. Outside the gate, we officially get the quest Breaking the Siege of Kvatch, which we were supposed to get by talking with Savli and Matthias before entering the gate. Instead, by closing the gate, the quest is automatically given to us. When we speak with Savlian after closing the gate, we advance the quest to where we agree to assist in clearing out the Daedra who are in the plaza outside of the Chapel of Akatosh. After killing the Daedra, we speak with Savlian again and head inside the chapel to meet and greet Sean Bean. After we inform him that his father was indeed Goobot rather than some random farmer, he agrees to go to Wayne Priory with us to hear what Joffrey has to say. However, instead of going to Wayne Priory right now with Sean Bean, we instead fast travel to Grateful Pass stables outside of Skingrad. From there, we drink an 8 stack of skooma and proceed to run west-southwest towards Miskarkand. Aside from singing the sound of music when running through these hills, Sandy is cognizant of where he is landing on each jump. Because he's moving so fast, he achieves a bit of hang time when he goes over the top of each hill. If he were to just land on the ground each time, he would take a fair amount of fall damage, which actually happens on one of the launches. Luckily, if and when he takes damage of any kind throughout the run, he can use Heal Minor Wounds to top off on health while still running. The reason we go to Miskarkand is to retrieve the Great Welkin Stone, which is required to open the portal to Mankar Camoran's paradise near the end of the game. Inside of Miskarkand, as well as several other interior areas in the game, when we run downstairs, we have to pay attention to what's on the ceiling. Here, if we bump into the hanging lamps when running downstairs, we will get ramped towards the ground due to their angled sides. Because of how fast we're traveling, if we hit the ground with the vertical velocity from our redirected launch, we'll likely die from the fall damage. The rest of Miskarkand is pretty straightforward navigating through passageways to the Great Welkin Stone, so I'll take this opportunity to explain load warping in advance. When we grab this stone, we're going to make a quick save and then load the save we made in Wayne Priory. In our Wayne Priory save, Sandy presses E and Escape to both open the door and pull up the menu at the same time, as indicated by hearing the door opening as well as the menu popping up. In the menu, we then load the quick save that we just made after picking up the stone. This will then make us load in on the other side of the door that we just opened, but the character that loads in will be the one from the quick save that we made, allowing for us to quickly exit Miskarkand without ever having to backtrack or do any needless running. Inside the Wayne house, we run up the stairs and look into a chest, only to discover that the Amulet of Kings has been stolen. We then exit the house and head over to Wayne and Priory proper and begin our defense of the small monastery. Sandy makes quick work of the Mythic Dawn leader and 2 other agents before speaking with Joffrey and his big sword that is most definitely not compensating for anything. Outside, we make quick work of 2 other agents, being sure to eradicate the one on the right first because she's a marathon runner and is difficult to catch if we don't get her immediately. We then fast travel to the Cloud Ruler Temple, being sure to be under the influence of skooma before we pull up the map, otherwise we'll be over-encumbered and unable to fast travel. At the temple, we open the gate and immediately fast travel to the Imperial City waterfront, which will allow for us to run some errands while the cutscene at the temple plays out. Sandy immediately pops an 8-stack and begins heading southwest towards what he refers to on the compass as the Team Fortress 2 logo. This TF2 logo is Vindicel, which happens to be the location of an NPC named Umbra. Outside of the entrance, we make a save for load warping later on. Our goal in Vindicel is to convince the NPC Umbra to hand over her sword, also named Umbra. Inside, we again try to avoid hitting our head on ceilings and lamps as much as possible so that we don't take a lot of fall damage. Once we make it to the inner chamber of Vindicel, we'll encounter Umbra, with whom we have a brief conversation about her sword. After we get Umbra to hand over Umbra, we make a quick save and load warp back to the save we made at the entrance to the area. Once we successfully load warp, Sandy turns around and exits Vindicel and begins running west-northwest to Clavicus Vile's shrine. There we'll speak with Ma Raska the Khajiit and pick some specific dialogue options which give us the quest Clavicus Vile. We then go to the statue and quick save quick load to get the quest updated pop-up about retrieving the Umbra sword to appear sooner, as well as de-aggro any straggling enemies. After this, we interact with the statue to hand over Umbra and receive the mask of Clavicus Vile. When interacting with the statue, we interact specifically with Clavicus's dog Barbas, as interacting with that part of the statue doesn't have any dialogue tied to it that we would have to sit through. The reason why we did this to get the mask was so that we can use it in the quest Blood of the Daedra, where we require a Daedric artifact to open a portal to Mankar Cameron's paradise. After this brief excursion, we fast travel back to the Cloud Ruler Temple. At the temple, we speak with Sean Bean, followed by Joffrey, with whom we agree to join the Blades and finish the quest Wayne and Priory. After joining the exclusive group, we make a quick save, run inside, and make a load warp save at the door to the east wing, followed by quick loading to be back outside where we fast travel to the Imperial City Elven Gardens district. Here we run to Luther Broad's boarding house, wherein we hide in a corner where no one can see us and attack a Stav Wirich with a fireball. We then leave our cover after the quest pop-up to retrieve the Mythic Dawn Commentaries 1 from a Stav's body. We quickly speak with Boris about tracking down the 3 remaining Mythic Dawn commentaries. The idea here is that by retrieving all 4 editions of the Mythic Dawn commentaries is that we'll then be able to determine where the Mythic Dawn Sanctuary is. Upon leaving the boarding house, we fast travel to the Arcane University, where Sandy waits until around 7 to 8 AM to speak with Tar Mina, who helps us out by giving us the Mythic Dawn commentaries too. After retrieving the light reading, Sandy goes to exit the building and makes a hard save at the door to load warp 2 later on. Outside, we fast travel to the Market District, where we run to the first edition bookstore. There we speak with Phintius, the proprietor of the bookstore, and learn that Mythic Dawn Commentaries 3 was just purchased by a Bosmer named Gwynnis. By exiting the bookstore, waiting for 1 hour, re-entering and exiting again, this Gwynnis fellow will be walking in the street in front of us. Sandy talks to him and tells Gwynnis that the Mythic Dawn were the ones who murdered Gubat. Stricken with fear and an absolute shell of his former self, Gwynnis hands over the book, leaving just the 4th for us to locate. We then fast travel to the Elven Gardens and proceed to run to the courtyard where we enter the sewers. In the sewers, Sandy drops down and turns a wheel to open a gate and then immediately decides this area is too dark and damp for him and exits back to the Elven Gardens, where he runs over to Fathus Ulysses' house. We have to lockpick to enter the house, so after making sure no one can see us, Sandy uses the scroll wheel clicker to auto-attempt the lock over and over until it unlocks. Once inside, Sandy then performs an actual lockpick on the basement door and heads down to access a shortcut to the end of the sewer area. This detour through Fathus' house skips having to follow Boris through the sewers, and when we arrive here at the end, we just have to wait 2 hours and Boris will spawn by us. When Boris appears, we talk with him and tell him that we'll be the one to meet the sponsor from the Mythic Dawn to get the Mythic Dawn commentaries for. Sandy then sits down and listens for the footsteps of the sponsor, which, upon hearing, he stands up and waits for the gate to be opened. The moment the gate is opened, Sandy blasts the sponsor, Raven Cameron, the son of Mankar Cameron, and loots the 4th book off of his body. We then make a quick save and load warp to the Arcane University save we made, followed by fast traveling to the Imperial Palace. Equipped with the knowledge from the 4 books, we run over to the tomb of Prince Camaril, which glows red between 11:48 AM and 12:30 PM to reveal the location of the Mythic Dawn Shrine. By interacting with the runes on the tomb, we get the quest Dagon Shrine and fast travel to Black Waterside Stables outside of Shadenhall. Upon arrival, we immediately drink an 8-stack and frolic through the hills to the north-northwest. Our destination now is the Lake Arius Caverns, which is the location of the Mythic Dawn's secret shrine to Mehrunes Dagon. Our goal there is to steal the Mysterium Xarxes, which is a book written by Mehrunes Dagon himself, which will be used as a gateway to Mankar Cameron's paradise. We want to put a stop to his shenanigans. When we arrive at the Lake Arius Caverns, we get into a scuffle with the bouncer outside of the club and use his key to enter the shrine antechamber. We're only in the antechamber for a moment, as the door to the Dagon Shrine itself is just down the hallway. At the shrine, Sandy runs forward a little bit, stops for half a second to reset his momentum, and runs off the ledge to land right on top of the ritual shrine to grab the Mysterium Xarxes, after which he runs up some nearby stairs to the shrine living quarters. The Dagon Shrine quest will then update, meaning Mankar Cameron will now spawn in paradise when we travel there later. We then quick save and load warp to the Cloud Ruler Temple. At the temple, we speak with Sean Bean, who is moseying about, and hand over the Mysterium Xarxes. We then exit to outside and look to talk to Joffrey, who can spawn in a couple spots. Unfortunately, in this run, we got a bit unlucky and Joffrey spawned back inside the temple, so we had to re-enter to talk with him. Talking with Joffrey, we learn that there are spies working against the Blades. We then head outside and fast travel to the Bruma East Gate, where we wait until 7 AM. Side note, you may have noticed by now that whenever Sandy is attacking, he holds block the whole time. This is because there's actually less of a delay between attacks if you're holding block. This is utilized all throughout the run, especially when throwing fireballs. When we're done waiting, we're going to make a save outside of the Great Chapel of Talos for load warping later on, and then run across town to Jural's house where we lockpick our way inside. The reason why we waited until 7 AM was that the NPC's routines at 7 AM allow for us to lockpick in broad daylight without worrying about getting caught, and also to make sure both residents will be inside the house. Once inside, we're going to take out both Jural and Severi Faram with fireballs and a mean left hook. We'll then take a key from Severi's body and enter the basement. There, Sandy will find a scroll of Jural's orders to cleanse Bruma, which retroactively justifies his double homicide. Sandy will then flee the scene of the crime via load warp to the Cloud Ruler Temple, where he'll wait until around 2 PM to speak with Joffrey in the main room. Joffrey will congratulate us on the equivalent of guessing the correct culprit on turn 1 of the game of Clue, and we then hand over the Mask of Clavicus file to Sean Bean to be used as a piece in the creation of the portal to Paradise. Joffrey will then speak with us again to inform us that an Oblivion gate has opened outside of Bruma and we're to lead the charge in closing the gate. We'll then head outside and fast travel to Wild Eye Stables and run over to the Oblivion gate where we'll speak with our boy Bird. We'll then enter the gate and immediately upon loading in, make a quick save and load warp to the door at the top of the tower in the first Oblivion gate that we closed. The Oblivion gates recycle the interior cells of the last rooms in the towers, so by load warping to that room with the save we made next to the door earlier and entering the final room, it counts as entering the final room in the current Oblivion gate that we're in. The caveat to this is that the door we're load warping on is technically locked in the Oblivion gate we're currently in, so once we successfully load warp, we still have to lockpick the door. Once we complete the lockpick and turn around to enter the final room, the gate will automatically close since we entered the final area and will be brought back to outside of Bruma. Outside, Bird will speak with us and tell us about how he learned from our technique and will be able to handle any additional gates that open near Bruma. We then load warp back to the interior of the Cloud Ruler Temple, where we'll speak with Sean Bean. At the temple, the Jay Leno-looking Martin informs us that the next ingredient we need to open the portal to Paradise is the blood of the Divines. Creeped out, we speak with Joffrey, who informs us that we can probably get some blood of Tiber Septim off of his armor that we can find in Sancor Tor. Tiber's blood will work for the portal because he later on became the god Talos, the god of governance. With this information in hand, we fast travel to the Coral North Gate, exit to the Great Forest, and run north-northeast. I know that it was almost 18 minutes ago, but we quickly have time to explain the scroll duping process. When we performed the first dupe by clicking on one scroll stack and dropping the other, it caused us to drop 9 flashbolt scrolls, but we only picked up 8 of them. The reason why we only picked up 8 was because we wanted to make sure we didn't have the same number of each scroll. This is because in order to perform a scroll dupe, you need to have fewer items of whatever stack you're dropping, otherwise the glitch won't work. We continued to perform scroll dupes, alternating the scroll stack that we were dropping and duping until we ended up with 256 flashbolt scrolls. Getting back to what's on screen, when we approach Sancor Tor, we run past a skeleton outside and enter with the key that Joffrey gave us. Sancor Tor has very low ceilings compared to other dungeons that we've been to, so low in fact that we don't have to worry about the fall damage from them redirecting us into the ground, so we're able to just run straight at the slanted ceilings when running down most stairs. We eventually come to a gate that we open with a nearby lever, and then go up some stairs to find a skeleton of an undead blade. Sandy makes quick work of our deceased brother, and then runs to the door to the entry hall, making a save for load warping before he enters. Our stay in the entry hall is going to be short-lived as we quickly run to the entrance to the prison. In the prison, we pull a lever to be able to continue down the passageways, and Sandy burns a ghost to quench his boredom as the gate opens. Running up some nearby stairs, Sandy happens upon the skeleton of Warden Kostov, whom he makes quick work of. Sandy loots the key off of Kostov's bones and uses it to open a nearby door so we can progress deeper into Sancor Tor. As we descend deeper into the dungeon, we run past more ghosts than Eddie Murphy dealt with in the Haunted Mansion, and finally come across another undead blade skeleton. After deleting this calcium deposit, Sandy waits for a quest pop-up and aligns himself looking a certain direction while waiting. After the pop-up appears, Sandy load warps back to the entry hall, and thanks to his positioning, he's facing the direction that allows for him to just hold W when he loads in to move further into the area. If we aren't aligned correctly, when we hold W, we might accidentally run into a wall and clip through, which would technically make this run invalid as a no out of bounds run. In the entry hall, we ran to the right this time to go to the Hall of Judgment. Right now, our goal is to kill all 4 of the cursed blades who are roaming as skeletons, and so far we've taken out 2. The reason we have to take out all 4 is that a spell was put on the passage where the armor of Tiber Septim lies, and in order to lift the spell, we have to free all of the blades from their undead slumber. The 3rd blade unfortunately spawns in a cell in the Hall of Judgment, and he didn't want to come out to play. This forced Sandy to have to move around the area to an awkward angle and snipe the blade from super far away before we were able to move on to the 4th and final blade. Luckily, the last blade was in the catacombs lurking near the entrance, and we easily sniped him from the door. We then ran to the Tomb of the Riemann Emperors, where we quick save quick load upon entering to de-aggro any straggling enemies who may have been following us. We then wait about 4 to 5 hours for all of the blades to appear. Once the final blade takes a knee, we begin running through the cursed passageway and pick up the armor of Tiber Septim, after which we load warp back to the Cloud Ruler Temple. Here, we're going to speak with Sean Bean, who has gone full bookworm on us and is making progress on how to open the portal to paradise. We hand over the armor, as well as the Great Welkin Stone from Miskarkand, and then exit the temple and fast travel to Castle Bruma. The Great Gate is about to open outside of Bruma, so we have to make sure that Countess Narina Carvain is safe. We're going to briefly speak with her and tell her to follow us, after which we'll quick save and load warp to the Great Chapel of Talos with the save we made just before committing the double homicide. Inside the chapel, we'll wait 1 hour for Narina to catch up, after which we'll talk with her again and say let the battle begin. Unfortunately, the chapel is only serving as a safe house for the Countess rather than the birthplace of our marriage, and we have to leave her here to fast travel to Wild Eye Stables. When we load in, we wait 5 hours to give the troops time to mobilize, and then drink an 8-stack and run northeast to the Oblivion Gate. When we arrive at the battlefield, we're going to be very careful about how we descend the hill, because it's very easy to take fall damage while going down there. We then have to stand around and wait as Sean Bean does his William Wallace impression. In the meantime, we get to admire our boy Bird a bit, and also tower over Mr. Bean as he looks stupid in that tacky helmet.
We let the Daedra do to Bruma what they did to Kavach. Will we let them burn our homes? We will let them kill our families. No, we make our stand here today.
We then stand ready to fight the demonic menace, as a character who belongs more in a James Cameron movie than in Oblivion. When the time has finally come, the Daedra begin their invasion by sending their initial charge of a whopping 3 enemies, who we take out quickly with some fireballs and some quick jabs. Sandy is sure to make quick work of the foes before they cast their absorb spell, which would give them a chance to absorb our fireballs if we're unlucky. The Daedra then send their combat specialists in their second wave. Another terrifying 3 enemies to take on the 24 who have assembled to defend the realm of Tamriel. After another couple fireballs and jabs, the second wave falls beneath our feet. Once the second wave is complete, Sandy, being the masterful tactician he is able to correctly predict where the next Oblivion gate will appear, as if he has seen this moment happen hundreds on hundreds of times before in his dreams. Sandy again quickly takes out these enemies, but it was a trap. 3 more additional enemies spawned at the first gate as well to flank our defense. Sandy pushes Sean Bean to safety and looks for an angry face, because that's how we know when more enemies will spawn. The additional enemies spawn at the second gate, but Sandy is ready for them, quickly taking them out before predicting the flank. Sandy and the defenses are so efficient that one of the units in the flank attempted to retreat, but no living creature can escape the wrath of humanity. Again, more enemies invade our realm, but we're quick to beat them back. During this battle, Sandy has to pay close attention to where Sean Bean is at all times, because if he accidentally were to hit him with a fireball, then Sean Bean would die in yet another form of media, and we'd have to restart the fight all over again. Soon, the third Oblivion gate spawns, and chaos ensues as enemies spawn from all gates relentlessly. We're no stranger to combat, however, and are able to bat back their forces. Soon, the Great Gate itself spawns, and we enter immediately to the Plane of Oblivion. As with the previous gate we entered, we can finish this gate immediately by load warping to the final door of the tower and then turning around to enter the final room. The Daedra have no one to blame but themselves for this embarrassing manner of defeat, as they clearly went with the lowest bidder when constructing the Plane of Oblivion and didn't put much thought into the construction of their towers. Once we enter the final room, the Great Gate is destroyed and we're brought immediately back out to the battlefield where there are several Dremora we have to take out quickly. When all of the Dremora have been finished, including the one who will do a weird floating jump, the music will change and we can speak with Sean Bean, who surprisingly survived a major combat experience. After the brief chat, we quick save and load warp to the Cloud Ruler Temple, where we wait for about 4 hours for Sean Bean to make it back to the temple. When he returns, we talk with him and say that we want to go through the portal to Paradise. He warns us that the portal will close behind us, but that's okay. There's nothing left for us in this world since we can't marry the Countess. We wait for 1 hour for Sean Bean to move into position, after which we drink some skooma as Sean Bean spawns the miniature sun that Doc Ock made in Spider-Man 2. We enter the portal and we're brought to Paradise. In Paradise, we run east along a path and enter the flooded grotto, where we will find the Dremora named Cathutet. Cathutet has a chance of spawning outside the grotto, but we're notified of where he spawns based on when we get a quest pop-up. The quest pop-up didn't appear while we were outside in Paradise at all, so he didn't spawn outside and instead spawned inside the grotto. Cathutet can help us if we do a favor for him, but that's slow, so instead, Sandy will take him out quickly, take the bands of the Chosen from Cathutet's body, and then equip them. The bands allow us to access the next door to enter the Forbidden Grotto, where we're going to be performing a ton of jumps over chasms that have lava at the bottom. These jumps are pretty scary if you're new to running the game, but Sandy is a madman and makes the leaps with no hesitation. Granted, 2 of the jumps are actually just running over the chasm instead of jumping, but it doesn't take away from Sandy's daring feat. Sandy also quickly took out a Mythic Dawn agent before he could talk to us, which skips all the unnecessary stuff associated with that dude as we continue to sprint through the caverns. We continue to run through the hot grotto and speak with Eldemil, whose help we accept. If we had said no to Eldemil, then we would be locked in the area and wouldn't be able to access the door at the end of the Forbidden Grotto, which brings us back outside to Paradise. When we finally make it to said door and are back outside, Sandy will immediately turn west and run towards a big tree. This will spawn us back at the door we just exited and de-aggroes the enemies to ensure that our fast travel doesn't get disabled at the end. Sandy runs up the hill and performs a large skooma jump, no-scoping an unsuspecting Mythic Dawn agent before we enter Kairak Agailar. In this room, we find Mankar on his throne. After a heated and epic battle with the leader of the Mythic Dawn, we barely defeat the evil man before making a quick save and load warping back to the Cloud Ruler Temple. We had to wait for when our screen started to shake in Paradise before we made our quick save though, otherwise we wouldn't get the Amulet of Kings from killing Mankar. With Mankar dead, the only thing left to do is relight the dragon fires in the Temple of the One, resealing the barrier between Tamriel and Oblivion. In the Cloud Ruler Temple, we spoke with Sean Bean to give him back his drip before exiting the temple and fast traveling to the Imperial City Palace. There, we run up to the Elder Council chambers and make a save outside before entering. Inside, we run in front of High Chancellor Okado and wait about 4 hours to get Okado to start talking, since he's typically slow to start. We then speak with Okado, which triggers some dialogue between the 2 men. These dialogues can actually be skipped via quick saving and quick loading, however, we can't move during these talks, and we want to be close to the exit so we don't get body blocked on our way to exit later on. To do this, we quick save on the first dialogue and then load warp to the first store, which both functions as a loading of our quick save to skip their first line, and a method to reposition our immobile self to the exit. We then quick saved and quick loaded to skip each individual line as it started. After the final line, we got a pop-up saying that the Daedra Mythic Dawn are launching a last-ditch attempt to destroy the Empire. Oblivion gates have opened all around the city, and Mehrunes Dagon himself has crossed over into our realm. We sneak past the big red man and enter the Temple of One, where we wait until the timer stops itself and Sean Bean spawns inside of our face. After getting to know Sean Bean a little too well, we try and push him to his next dialogue spot. The run officially ends after we skip through all of his dialogue and the camera zooms out after talking with him. Sean Bean is resolved that he must utilize the power of his lineage and the dragon god blood infused in the Amulet of Kings to turn himself into the avatar of Akatosh, the dragon god. As an immortal, he will be able to fight Mehrunes Dagon, who is also an immortal, and banish his physical form, closing all of the Oblivion gates in the process. I'm gonna be honest, this ending made no sense to me when I first played through it as a 10-year-old, and still goes down as one of the most out-of-nowhere ending cutscenes in video game history. If you made it this far in the video, I'd like to say thank you, and that both myself and Sandy appreciate you. Sandy was a huge help and is a really talented speedrunner. If you use Twitch, please do go drop him a follow. Lately he's been doing speedruns of Half-Life 2, which are super interesting and entertaining runs to watch live. Also, I highly recommend you go check out the leaderboard for Oblivion. It's absolutely stacked with talented runners that you should go follow. Just looking at the No Out of Bounds board alone has runners like Sandy, Miroku, Garish Goblin, Bubbles Del Fuego, Fun Cannon, and tons of others that you should check out. Speaking of recommending things, a lot of people lately have been recommending that I make a Patreon, so I did a stealth launch of one a few weeks ago. You can find it at patreon.com/tomatoanus. It's 2019, so I'm sure you all know what Patreon is, so I'll spare you the explanation. I just want to be clear though, I do have a full-time job outside of YouTube, so if I don't make millions off of Patreon, I won't become destitute. Right now, we have goals set up so that for every 25 patrons, I'll punish you with a patron-only Fanfiction Friday video, and I'll also host a live Q&A for every 50 patrons. Again, it's totally fine if you don't want to contribute. A few YouTubers I watch have the philosophy that if you want to contribute, you should chuck in as much money as you'd be okay with dropping on the street and just not picking up. If you do decide to become a patron though, I really appreciate you and your support. That's all for this video though. Sorry to go off the deep end with this Patreon shilling. This video was going to have a sponsor instead, but I called it off after some stuff came to light about the company, and I'd rather not work with them at this time, so I figured this video would be the best time to plug the Patreon. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed the run, and if you have any feedback on it or recommendations for other runs to cover or videos to make, I recommend you join my Discord and head over to the video discussion and recommendation channels, link is in the description. This was an Oblivion no out of bounds speedrun. I've been Tomato Anus, and I hope you have an above average day.